Okay, so hello and welcome to the second Gaming Masters podcast. Now, this is going to be a little bit different in comparison to the previous podcast. Previous podcast, we outlined all of the information from the previous week in gaming and technology news. This week, we're going to be talking about virtual reality. Now, virtual reality is a fairly new kid on the block. There are very few devices available that are affordable on the market. You do have the Google Cardboard device. You do have a few things like that, like the Gear VR and things, which are a little bit more budget orientated, but they aren't the full virtual reality experience. Now, I have used the three main candidates for the virtual reality devices that are currently being marketed fairly well or fairly well known. So those devices are the Oculus Rift, the Gear VR, and also the Sony PlayStation VR. I'm going to be giving a comparison of those three devices in this episode. It's going to be a interesting comparison because people do have different opinions. And as I've played all of them, I'm going to be giving my overall summary of which one I think is best. I'm going to be starting off with the Gear VR. The Oculus Rift. The Oculus Rift was really the first device that people heard of. In 2011, this was revealed for a Kickstarter. They had all the basic principles behind, the development and stuff like that, and the research and things had pretty much already been done. They knew what they were doing, and they revealed the Oculus Rift. The Oculus Rift, in my opinion, is coming in second in the virtual reality device race as such at this moment in time. I really do like the user interface, the menu system. That is really well done. It looks a bit similar to the current Windows 10 UI on Xbox One. I really do enjoy it. I found the Oculus Rift fairly uncomfortable. It had a kind of headband strap around the back, and it seemed to be fairly. It was a fairly stable. It wasn't squishy or anything like that, but because the layers of rubber that protect it, so your eyes weren't hurting as such. It's like the kind of cushioned base. When it was against your eyes, personally, I found hard, and it hurt the edges of my eyes, and it was also fairly low resolution screen at the time of me using this, which was back in September 2015. So we've come on quite a few months since then, and it might have changed since then. I believe the Oculus Rift is now possibly out. I'm just double checking that for you now. But the Oculus Rift personally is not a device which I enjoyed. It's the concept behind it is amazing. I love the experience behind virtual reality, and the Gear VR, which is their second device, is actually really good because you can just put your phone and use it as a VR device. My problem with Oculus Rift is it has a very firm edging where you put your eyes, and the screen at the time of me testing it was a fairly lowish resolution. I'm not sure if it's changed since during the development process. The VR device is out now, so you could go and try it. However, I really do like the actual user interface that you use. The headphones I found fairly poor quality. The kind of back that you have on it is made of plastic. It's not the strap one. I got a little bit confused with that. It's a solid object all the way around, but the headphones were fairly poor quality by the pictures that I'm looking at right now, you can't plug in your own headphones, which personally is a disappointment, but maybe it's because they wanted something proprietary. Um, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the Oculus Rift. Moving on to the PlayStation VR. The PlayStation VR comes in third. The reason why the PlayStation VR comes in third, and they've not done anything wrong with the PlayStation VR. My simple issue with the PlayStation VR is it's a low resolution, and I felt nauseous with the PlayStation VR. I didn't feel nauseous with any of the other VR devices that I've tried. The resolution was too low, and the game that I played, which was this kind of like robot fighting kind of like game, I think it is. It reminded me of Real Steel, the concept behind it. It wasn't actually fighting, but like you were playing a match, you had to like power up enough by shooting these robots and then score a goal kind of thing. It was an interesting concept, but bearing in mind the PlayStation VR is limited to running off a PS4, the FPS was fairly low, and they do recommend that you have a system which can run at 90 FPS for virtual reality, so it's a fairly stable frame rate and doesn't make you nauseous. This seemed to be running at about, now I'm no expert, but it was running lower than 90 FPS, pretty much guaranteed. The resolution is supposedly the same as the other devices from memory. However, I felt really nauseous. It was fairly blurry and caused a lot of eye strain, and I didn't particularly like the PSVR. However, the thing that I do like about the PlayStation VR is the way that it runs through the PlayStation 4. Therefore, it's easier for you to launch your games because it's already on a system that you've already got kind of thing, and it's a cheaper option. However, you do need the PS4 alongside it. The user, you don't have the user interface selection that you get with Oculus Rift and HTC Vive because it runs through the PS4 instead, and it's like own operating system which is inside the device. However, the thing that I liked about the PlayStation VR is that the headset is completely adjustable and it's comfortable. So you put it on top of your head and it can expand to whatever head size. Like if you have a big head, if you have a wide head, if you have a long head, just basic terminology there. Like you can expand it with a kind of like rotating disc, a bit similar to a bike helmet, and you can pull it in, you can push it out, etc. So it will be suitable for pretty much anybody. Some of the other devices were one size fits all kind of thing, and that doesn't always work out particularly well, and I found them uncomfortable. This one was padded, and also the PlayStation VR does look really cool. And the stuff that was revealed for it last year, like the looks of the PlayStation VR, like I thought, oh, that's just some concept art kind of thing. No, that's real. It looks really futuristic and it's really cool. It's just a shame that the frame rate is fairly low and the resolution is lowish as well. Obviously, this is early development for the PSVR. It's the first time it's really been out for people to try. And there is a possibility of a new PS4 coming out, and if that possibility of the new PS4 coming out is what people say it is, as in you have to have the new PS4 version to be able to play the PSVR at a the recommended frame rate and resolution and stuff. Maybe. We'll just have to wait and see. It would be a shame if you have to buy another PS4, just a new one, to play PSVR. I'd be surprised if they would do that. However, it kind of does make sense after my experience with it. The one that I've really loved is the HTC Vive. The HTC Vive's user interface isn't particularly friendly, in my opinion. I was disappointed, to put it bluntly, with the user interface for it. You were kind of like moving around in a circle and you kind of pointed it and held down the trigger. However, the controller for the HTC Vive was really well done. It was really comfortable. It just fitted in your hands. There was like no issues with it. It felt like when you're holding an Xbox One controller, it felt like just a kind of like handle of one of those. So it was really comfortable. And it was really comfortable on your head as well, and it was a really stable frame rate and a decent resolution screen. The only problem with the the only problem with all of the mainstream VR devices that hook up to either a PC or a PS4 is they are wired. Now, my issue with having them wired is you're restricted to the areas that you can go in the room. So if you have, for example, a large room, you're in like a large conservatory or something like that, loads of open space. You have the PC, you have the headset on, you can't actually go certain places because they're wired down and they kind of like tie you down with it. And also it causes a trip hazard, especially if nobody else is around with you while you're using it. You could easily trip over the cables. That was an issue that I did work out, especially with the HTC Vive. However, all of them do require wires at this moment in time. Obviously, this is the first iteration of these devices, so future versions will probably be wireless. I'd be surprised if they won't, to be honest. The HTC Vive is definitely the best VR device out there on the market, in my opinion. I'm not sure if the HTC Vive has started shipping yet. I believe it's shipping soon, but there isn't anything like in paper as far as I know. I think they start shipping next month, possibly. So do definitely keep up to date with that. The HTC Vive is definitely the best one out on the market. If you don't want to be getting the HTC Vive because you might want a slightly different user interface, slightly more user friendly, go for the Oculus Rift. If you want to. I didn't find the Oculus Rift comfortable, which is a shame. However, their user interface at this current moment in time seems to be a lot more comfortable. If you have a PS4, yeah, you can get the PlayStation VR. However, at this moment in time, this is development, so things will change between now and release, because that's not out until October. However, I wasn't particularly impressed with the frame rate and the resolution of the screens, which is a shame. However, this is development. We'll just have to wait and see what happens in the next few months with these devices. I'm definitely going to be getting a VR device at some point. I have a few games for VR. I have a game that actually released today at the time of recording this podcast. I have Pollen, which is a VR game, which is actually the platform that I tried out Oculus Rift on. So, yeah, I'm fairly impressed with the overall experience. There are a few places where these devices could end up. Personally, I'm not as interested in the virtual reality devices as I am with augmented reality devices like HoloLens. HoloLens is something that interests me a lot more than the VR devices, but I definitely do want to be trying one out at some point. If you have any questions related to any of the three devices that I've mentioned in this video, do leave a comment, contact me on Twitter, email, or something like that. I'll be more than happy to respond. And yeah, I personally would recommend the HTC Vive. If you don't want the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift is the way to go. PSVR, I'm not too sure about, we'll have to see. The prices do vary depending on the specific one that you've selected, and if you're running one off a PC, do bear in mind that the minimum specifications is like 8 gigabytes of RAM, I believe, a GTX 960 or higher, and at least an i5. So you do have to have those specifications. And if you're getting the PlayStation VR, you do have to have the PS4. And they might possibly have a different PlayStation which is like designed for the PSVR kind of thing, which may run at a better frame rate. Anyway, thank you for listening to this short little podcast of my opinion of comparing the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, and the PlayStation VR. Don't forget to like, follow, and of course, as always, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video and/or podcast.